What's up, everybody? Welcome to the KindaFunny Gamescast. I'm one of your hosts, Greg Miller, alongside Forbes 30 Under 30, a.k.a. the future class of video games, a.k.a. the OK Beast, Blessing Adeoye Jr.
Greg, right here in front of me, I have sitting this beautiful, big portable device.
Hold it up. Let me see. This is as close as I can ever get
This
to.
is the Nintendo Switch.
Oh!
I have. So, a while ago, I talked about how I was going to gift my nephew a Switch for Christmas. That ended up not happening because I ended up not traveling for Christmas because Omicron got crazy.
So
I'm actually gonna be.
Kid.
Yeah, he's good. I was like, he'll live. If he dies, he dies. But I actually go to Houston this weekend. I'm gonna visit with him and the family. I'm finally gonna gift him the Switch, and I've been trying to figure out what games do I get him, because I think I'm gonna for sure give him Mario Odyssey, because that's a favorite of mine on the Switch.
Well, let's stop right there.
Mm-hmm.
Now we'll go one by one in introductions. Everybody will give you their game. How's that sound?
Oh, that's perfect. For context, he's like 8 years old.
Hispanic heartthrob, Texas treat, Latino heat, clicking heads and ripping them to shreds. The globetrotting, headshotting from Twitch.tv. He's a nitro rifle. It's Andy Cortez. Andy, what game would you give?
I'm gonna 2 recos.
2 recos.
Mario 3D World.
You're literally the first person to step up, and you're breaking the system. But okay, cool.
Mario 3D World, and leave him a little $30 on the system.
Oh,
put a little $30 on there and be like, whatever you want, man. There's probably some, if it's like my nephew, probably some My Hero Academia shit on here, or some sort of anime thing you like or whatever. Go ahead and just go buck wild, or buy that little indie game that costs $7. You know, there's a lot of stuff like that.
I like that.
Okay, hold on. I'm putting this down. So Mario 3D World.
Oh, I got this typed out.
$30. What are you putting on there already, Bless?
Mario Odyssey.
Mario Odyssey. Then she works at GameSpot.com. Giant bomb, and she's obsessed with filing cabinets. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Lucy James Games. Hello, Lucy James.
Hi. Thank you for your filing cabinet recommendation, by the way.
I don't even know if it helped at all. It was just the most generic, filing cabinet off of Amazon. But I hope it helped you get inspired to get your own. So I don't know.
It really did. It really did.
Okay, good. What would you give this 7 to 8 year old boy on the Nintendo Switch?
2 things. One of them's free. So it doesn't count. Okay. Minecraft. He's an 8-year-old boy. Can't go wrong.
Yeah.
And also 8-year-old boy. Can't go wrong. And I say this because of a chilling life experience I had where I met my brother-in-law's nephews, and they came up and they were like, "Oh my god, you work in games! Like, do you play Fortnite?" And they were so excited to meet me and meet someone who works in games. And I said that I didn't play Fortnite, and my stock just plummeted.
That's a heartbreaker.
So put Fortnite on that bad boy.
Yeah, I think you said Galgun. I wasn't sure what you were calling it.
Is Fortnite and Minecraft, those are your 2?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
For an 8-year-old? Yeah.
You can't go wrong with that. Yeah, 100%. So we have Mario Odyssey, we have Mario 3D World, we have $30, we have Minecraft, we have Fortnite, we have, I would say,
V-Bucks.
If we're just putting out 2, we're just putting out, I'm sorry, what was it?
V-Bucks.
Well, don't lock him into the Fortnite ecosystem. If he has the $30, he could use that right there, couldn't he?
Yeah. No, that's actually perfect. So. Yeah.
Okay.
And I also like this because like Fortnite and Minecraft are free. So yeah, Greg, give me 2 because I got money to spend now.
Thank you very much. I would say from the new hotness, and I don't know this kid, but I assume he's a kid. Yeah. Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga.
Ooh,
put that really on there, right? And then from the old guard, I'd get Mario Kart. Like, there's a reason the attach rate's insane for Mario Kart, right? It's just too much fun. And then you could play it, and you could just literally beat the shit out of them.
Mm-hmm.
That was
also Switch Sports. Beat the shit out of them.
Ooh, that is a good one too.
And here's a 7th recommendation. You all were just talking about it, Greg and Barrett. Marvel Ultimate Alliance. I think a kid that age, I could be any superhero I want. I just beat the shit out of bad guys as the superhero that I like from the Marvel movies that I watch. Cool. Awesome.
I was thinking it, but I didn't say it. But that would also be another hot one.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, I got Marvel's Ultimate Alliance 3, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, Fortnite, Minecraft, Mario Odyssey, Mario 3D World, and an extra $30.
Right.
This kid's been balling.
Real quick.
Is Slime Rancher on Switch?
This kid's not a loser.
Yeah,
Lucy.
no, he's not. This kid's cool. He's a cool kid.
Maybe Inside.
I was confused when Lucy said this, but then I thought she landed the plane. But then Cameron Kennedy's calling in this. You were saying that Fortnite's free. You have to buy Minecraft, right? Is Minecraft's not free?
Yeah,
to play.
Minecraft you have to buy, but Fortnite's
Yeah, okay. Just make sure. The
free.
way you introduced it, I think it sounded to me. It's not like you were saying
I
Minecraft.
flipped it.
Yeah, exactly. Just make sure we're on the same page. We're on the same page.
Also,
And then I think
Slime
Blessing might
Rancher
say two
is
of them are free.
is in fact on Twitch.
But this kid ain't no fucking loser.
He's not a dork.
It's a fun game.
Look at Lucy James. You think Blessing's nephew is this dorky? You know what I mean? You think you look at Lucy James.
I know
Lucy James, how
Blessing,
excited
so
were you
yeah,
for your
kinda.
wearable duvet cover 3 seconds ago?
that's the
You
thing,
telling me this kid is that big of a loser?
I came into the Discord group and I was like, guys, Tam got me a blanket that you can wear. And although you all went, ooh.
Well,
and
we're
then
all
you were like,
losers, yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so
we know that.
for
No, it's,
sure.
you know,
This
it's
kid,
the
though,
pot calling the kettle black over here. You know how it works.
Uh,
Because this is the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Each and every week, ladies and gentlemen, we come together to nerd out about all the things we love and sometimes don't love about video games. If you love nerding out with us, you should go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Over on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, you could hear the ballad of Jorge over on Kind of Funny Games Daily's post show right now. But more importantly, you could be watching live, just like Win Stances. Madeline Stanley is an Omega 3R. If you're watching live right now, you're a trog. Thank you so much. Make sure you're popping off in the comments with your answer to the question we have from Mr. Evil 37 coming up. Because of course, if you support us on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, you can write in to be part of the show. You can get the show ad free, and you can get the exclusive post show we do each and every week. Blessing, Tim Getty's down today. Snakes, both eyes. Normal
Both
thing.
of them.
We can't exactly. Yeah, we can't get away from him. I know you and me had to go to a memorial service for his eyes before this. Did you have time to do a bless who?
Oh yeah, I did it during the memorial.
Thank you. Perfect.
when I was looking
That's
at-
how Tim would
looking
have
at
wanted you to
screenshots.
do it.
Yeah. No.
Yeah,
I was
of course.
doing the bless
If
you.
you've never heard of Bless You, it's America's #1 game show, and it's our post-show game show that you should stick around for, and it's a great time, and yada, yada, yada. And then, of course, you can hear the ballad of Jorge over on Kind of Funny Games Daily with me and Jorge.
Don't know what that is. Don't
I got a
wanna
lot of
know.
questions about that.
Yeah.
Well, just listen
You
to
know
Kind of
what?
Funny Games Daily.
Actually, Andy, I will say it was actually kind of a wholesome post show. So
Oh.
definitely check it out. I know it sounds a little weird when Greg introduces it as the Ballad of Jorge with no context.
Are you telling me that's not a selling point? I put up a Twitter video
It's not,
today.
really not.
I put up a
It's
Twitter video, hashtag pray for Jorge, and
concerning.
it was the breakout of 50 seconds where I just scream about Jorge. Is that not getting people to click on it? If you got no bucks tossed our way and you don't want to hear the ballad of Jorge, no big deal. YouTube.com/kindoffunnygames, roosterteeth.com. Podcast services around the globe each and every week for a brand spanking new episode. Chock full of ads, no post show, no Jorge, but you still have a good time. If you want us to go a little bit further to support us, why not use the Epic creator code Kind of Funny whenever you're using something on the Kind of Funny. No, that's not right. When you're on the Epic Game Store, you can use the Kind of Funny code. We get a few bucks kickback. If you don't play on the PC, you're playing your Fortnite on your Switch, you're playing your Rocket League on the PlayStation 5. Of course, the Kind of Funny creator code works there as well. Please use it and tell your friends to. You're one of these. You're a blessing, right? You're about to gift some kid a Switch. Put the code in beforehand. You know what I mean? Then the kid just doesn't ever. I think it only lasts for like a season or some bullshit, and then like you have to put it in again.
Well, the thing that I'm worried is that maybe I could see because I would set it up under my sister's email, right? Like I'm not gonna set it up with my email, but maybe I could hit her up and be like, "Yo, let me set this thing up for you."
Oh,
I'll
that was one of
figure
my
it out.
questions
That's
when
a
we were
good
talking
idea.
about the $30 and downloading Fortnite and stuff. Like I don't know, yeah, like for me, and even as a kid, right, there was that thing of like, turning on a system for the first time and like putting in your own information in. Like I don't know how kids do it. I guess in the modern day, because I guess actually none of that makes sense. You didn't do that in my day. You fucking blew in the cartridge and you plugged it in and it worked.
Plug it in and it worked.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know how you make anything for them. You gotta
It's a miracle that games worked.
100%.
Honestly, I think about it often of like, how do these kids even figure this out? Because yeah, like back in our day, we would just put in the N64 cartridge, turn it on, and it works. Whereas like little Israel, over his name is Israel. Little Israel has to like find an email.
I'm sorry, your
remember
nephew's
a
name is
password.
Israel?
Yeah.
God, your family tree is just the coolest fucking set of names.
Oh yeah, very biblical over in my family.
I
But
love it.
like, yeah, like he like, is he gonna make an email, memorize a password, like figure out an
He
avatar?
probably already has
Nah.
a bunch of emails.
At 8 years old, no, that's not a no. My brother put in his info. I put in my info a bit, and I
He couldn't manage his
accidentally
shop funds.
I accidentally bought something on my brother's card without knowing.
Nice.
I bought like a $50 card for my nephew. My brother's like, "Did you just I was like, oh shit, my bad.
When
My
I
bad.
gifted my my sister a Switch Lite, who I think at the time she was going into high school. Like I set all that up for her because even though she's a little older, like I knew she wasn't gonna set that shit up.
Mm. Or you could be a cool uncle who reserves him a good email address that he can carry on with him.
Oh. Oh. Prepping
Smart.
for the
We're gonna
future.
we're gonna run out of emails.
Izzy Brizzy,
Yeah.
Lil Izzy.
And you could do that
little
cute
Izzy
thing.
Bert.
I was gonna say you could do that cute thing of like every year on his birthday you could send him an email and then when he's 18 you
Oh.
can read them all.
Oh.
At
I
And
love
it's
18,
just like I smoked you at Fortnite just for 10 years.
see, I've heard this before, and obviously I have a child, as you all know. And I thought before about this, doing the email address and send them on.
Mhm.
Like at 18, do you think they would care? Was it going to hit at 18? When are you sentimental? You know what I mean? When do you want to read all this stuff from your stupid
I mean, maybe do
parents?
13. I feel like 13 is a good age.
Yeah. I mean, like, I set up my first email address when I was about 10, and it was a misspelling of my own name.
Nice.
So I would
Mhm.
say do it for them.
Well, see, I
Don't
think
live like me.
they're going to be more sentimental at 18 when they're going into a next chapter of their life, rather than 13 when they're like fucking snarky and shitty.
That's true.
I don't care about anything.
Like they're watching Disney movies. Like maybe they're not one of the snarky shitty ones. Maybe they're the ones that like are well behaved and get good grades and watch Pixar movies for a living. Like I
13, that's their job.
for a living. Yeah, well, they do it to make money. But like they're the kids that are like well adjusted and like have a good future ahead of them, as opposed to like, I don't know, man, one of those Barretts who like disobeys everybody and breaks the rules.
Sure.
Fucking Barrett out there doing ollies, smoking reefer. I know. I can picture it. I can picture it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you can picture Kinda Funny, let's talk about some housekeeping. First and foremost, Kinda Funny Wrestling features Jeff Grubb and Lucy James brutalizing their opponents this week. Please check it out over on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames. We have so much fun making that show, and it's going so incredibly well. Lucy, you had quite the debut. How did you feel?
Well, I was in the middle of doing some voiceover, and one of our freelancers, Alessandro, hit me up and he was like, "Are you watching Kinda Funny right now?" And I think you can hear me on the voiceover go, "Oh God." And like I switch over. It was so fun because I saw the picture of me in game and I had no idea that I was going to debut. And not only that I would debut, but I would be facing off against Joey.
JNW, Joey Noel, the
JNW.
unstoppable force of Kinda Funny meets the immovable object of GameSpot.com. Can
gonna
Lucy
say.
James defeat JNW and stop Joey Noel's reign of terror in the steel cage? You can only find out on youtube.com/KindaFunnyGames. Please go check it out as Barrett shows some of you right now. Also, be like our Patreon producers: Anonymous, Fargo Brady, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, First Responder ND, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, Alex J. Sandoval, James Hastings, and Casey Andrew. Today we're brought to you by MeUndies and Credit Karma. But Tim, rest in peace. Before he was bit by the snakes, we'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin the show with topic of the show. Mr. Evil 37 writes into patreon.com/KindaFunnyGames and gives us this gem. Hi, all. I am curious what everyone's top 5 game development studios are. Not necessarily in order or the ones that make the best games, but the studios that you personally love or prefer for one reason or another. Maybe you just like the people there or the studio's vibe. Mine are probably, and he lists a whole bunch of stuff, but I don't want to get in anybody's head. We'll come back to Mr. Evil 37. He can close it out with what his favorites are. But I saw this question. Again, Blessing was working on Bless You. I was there consoling Gia, looking at my phone while we were at Tim's funeral, and I was like, wait a second, this is a great question. Push Gia in the hole, then they put the dirt on her. They're both buried together now. It's going to be like Undertaker Kane. It's going to be great.
She was still alive, yeah.
Can't you get out of it? You know what I mean? Undertaker got out of it a bunch of times, Andy. You're going to tell me Gia can't? I love this question, Mr. Evil 37, so I thought it was a great one to jump in and go for, especially as much as we've been playing a bunch of different games right now, and we are so hyped for different games coming out this year and in the foreseeable future. So we will do this in the classic Kinda Funny way, everybody. We will begin with Lucy James, the guest. Then we will go clockwise to Andy, to me, to Blessing, and back around.
Wow.
We will each give one pick at a time. One pick at a time. I encourage you to try to not double up on studios. Try to, get outside the box. This is like you're drafting your fantasy team here, even though it doesn't have to be the best by anything.
That's why I wrote down 9 here. I see that
I wrote down 6 or 7.
Looks like other
I have
people have
6.
6. Okay.
I have 6.
Yeah, when I first joined the doc, it looked like some people had 5, and I was like, all right, we'll see about that.
Yeah.
I'm sure me and Andy aren't going to both pick a studio that starts with F and ends with software.
Oh,
I
love
mean, well reminded.
software.
I am just putting that in.
Lucy, as the guest, you get to go first. What is your first pick for the board?
My first pick would be Arcane. Thank you.
Good pick. Good pick.
Thank you. Just do you want me to go into like the full rationale?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh, all
Please,
right.
we gotta fucking fill this podcast
I
with
was gonna say,
something.
we
Please
got
talk.
we got some time to fill. No, I mean, I just think when it comes to game developers, there are very few with a pedigree of, I would say hits, but I feel like Arcane games don't necessarily sell or really permeate into the mainstream as much as I would love them to. But in terms of just games that are quality and that have such an incredible sense of world building, every single world that Arcane makes feels so precise, and they think through kind of everything. They think through the past, they think through it. Every world they create has such a sense of place when you're in it and when you're playing around in it. And I think what they also do is, which is I love, is they're very player first. And so typically, you know, if you see a thing in the environment in an Arcane game, it's like, what way can I manipulate this or dick around to get to my goal kind of thing. And that's what I really love, is that they give you that sandbox. And like Dishonored 1 and 2 are two of my favorite games of all time. I think Deathloop is a masterpiece. They're so stylish.
Mhm.
And every time I've spoken to any of them, they've always been the nicest. Which is also lovely. We got to present them with the Game of the Year award for Deathloop last year, and like they almost cried. They were so appreciative. They were so nice about it, and it was just very special. So I love Arcane. I'm very excited to see what Redfall is.
Yeah.
Vampires.
I keep thinking about Redfall because that's a game that I think could be anywhere between like bleeding edge in terms of like a game that comes out, a multiplayer game that comes out from a studio that's so talented that comes out and it's like, oh, this is different. Oh man, I don't know if this is hitting. All the way up to it can be like maybe a Borderlands if it lives up to its full potential, because like from watching the trailer and watching the gameplay, it seems like that's what they're kind of going for with it. And in some ways, you can kind of see that DNA in Deathloop, where Deathloop has the different levels for the loot, right? Like they have the legendary, they have like all the different stuff there. They have like, you know, a big open world that you can, quote unquote open world, that you can like run around and take out enemies and do all that stuff with. And if Redfall's the next step in their evolution, I think it could be special, but also it's one that I'm scared about because we have not seen that much from it. But yeah, Lucy, I'm right there with you. They're on my short list, my 9 short list of studios. Mainly for their level design and their design ethos. I think is so unique to them, and it's something that like very few studios do in terms of making immersive sims that feel like you can really exist in the levels and like search around every corner and have something that you can find or something that you can use to get a leg up on your enemy and like go for different cool stealth takedowns and all that stuff. Like they really prioritize player freedom in a way that very few developers do, and they're going for this kind of game in a way that few developers do. Like we've seen Deus Ex fall by the wayside. We've seen like Thief and like other immersive sims, first person shooter immersive sims fall by the wayside. And like as these other games are going away, somehow Arcane keeps doubling down and making these games, and now they've become popular for it, right? Like they've found super success doing it. Like I think Barrett Courtney is the one that always describes Deathloop as being their pop album, and the fact that they're able to come out and actually make that and put it out and actually have it work and be a thing that's a success, I think is very impressive. And yeah, I can't wait to see like what else they do in the future.
I have a feeling that Redfall is gonna stray the most away from what they've done, and I think that Redfall will be something that they work on and make, and obviously they want it to be the best game possible, but I think it's going to be sort of the bridge until the next big title that they want to make. Like almost as if Redfall is like, this one's for the fans and the next one will be for us again, right? Like Redfall, I feel is going to be more of that, much like, you know, Blessing already talked about how Barrett calls Deathloop their pop album, but I feel like Redfall is going to be their, anybody can play this. You don't have to necessarily care about the stories or the worlds that we create. This is going to be a multiplayer action fun game with some of the DNA in terms of, you know, controlling things. And I'm sure there's going to be all sorts of mind control and telekinesis powers and all sorts of things like that that you've seen. Yeah, that you've seen in Arcane games. But I feel like this is sort of the bridge until the next Dishonored or the next Deathloop or game of that ilk.
So hold on.
But I don't want it to be that. Remember, Ninja Theory made that multiplayer.
Damn it, Lucy. That's the point I'm trying to get to.
Yep.
I wanted to say we haven't talked about what. So I wanted to do the synopsis of what is Redfall. Because it's one of those that Redfall got announced, right? We knew about it. We've heard about it, but an open world co-op shooter coming summer 2022, right? Barrett was just running the debut trailer for it. Redfall is an open world co-op first-person shooter from Arcane Austin, the award-winning team behind Prey and Dishonored, continuing Arcane's legacy of carefully crafted worlds and love of creative game mechanics. Redfall brings the studio's signature gameplay to the cooperative action and first-person shooter genres. And so, yes, my question was, and Lucy's question too, because it's the one as you talk about being a bridge, Andy. Do you think it's a bridge people want to actually be on, or do you think it's going to be like Ninja Theory when they were right before they got picked up for Xbox? What was that fucking game called?
Real Edge heads, no. Bleeding Edge, baby.
Bleeding Edge. Yeah. Is it going to be? I mean, Bleeding Edge, obviously didn't move the needle and went away pretty quickly.
No, I don't think it's going to be on that level. Like, especially when Bleeding Edge was coming out, there were talks about it already. Like, yeah, we worked on this. We kind of put it by the wayside for a bit, like to work on Dishonored or whatever. I don't think it's going to be that at all. I think it's going to be something that they still try very hard on and try to make a larger game, especially with all the publicity that Xbox has been giving it. And we're starting to see it at these big, large conventions, or not conventions, but just events and showcases. It's still going to be a heavily showcased product. But I have a feeling that it's kind of like, we're going to make it. And by the way, we also have our second team starting the work on the next big single player game we're working on.
Yeah, I think the fact that it's Arcane Austin is the thing that gives me a bit of hope for it, because Arcane has two studios. There's Arcane Austin and then there's Arcane Leon. Arcane Leon is the one that did Deathloop. Arcane Austin is the one that did Prey. And Prey came out in 2017, which means that like to some extent they've been working on Redfall since then, right? And I'm sure they've also been working on Deathloop and they collaborate and all that stuff. But this is the next project from the team from Prey. And Prey was a game that, honestly, I think like going back to it, because I went back and played it this last fall after beating Deathloop, I think Prey was super underrated. Not enough people talked about Prey. And I think part of that is when Prey first came out, it came out on PS4 and Xbox One. And I think it had performance issues and things here and there that kept it back. Going back and playing it on Xbox Series X on Game Pass and having FPS boost and having it run like a dream, Prey is ridiculously good, and Arcane Austin is a ridiculously good developer. And so like I think if they're putting a lot of their energy and this is their main next project after Prey, then I got a lot of expectations for what Redfall can be.
Blessing, as somebody who just played Prey recently, and I mean the grand scheme of things, I know you didn't just play it yesterday. One of the things I remember being cool about it for some, but a turnoff to others, was how nerdy it was. Like, obviously, we talk about these RPGs and we talk about all the stuff you do in them and you're reading, text logs and doing this kind of thing. I remember Prey really being an RPG player's RPG, where it was, here's a whole bunch of text to read. Here's a whole bunch of weird stuff that's going on. It's super sci-fi, but it's not necessarily the most approachable. Is that true? Do you think that had part of the reception to it, that it was denser than some games were?
Yeah, for sure. I think it is their most hardcore game. Like if we're talking about the Arcane design ethos, all their games are very similar, right? They're first-person immersive sim. You're going around, you're reading logs, you're reading emails, you're getting calls, and they have very similar gameplay structure. Though I would say, like, again, Deathloop being the pop album, right? Deathloop, I would say, is the most approachable one, and then in the middle you have Dishonored, and then on the other side you have Prey being the one that, at least for me, in my opinion, was the one where I was like, oh, damn, this is hardcore. And I think it's not even the fact that it's super nerdy necessarily. I think it's just more restrictive in terms of upgrades and leveling up and the options. Like, you really gotta figure out the way you want to play. You gotta figure out what skill tree you want to go down. If you're using certain abilities, that's going to like take you down that evil path. And so if you're gonna commit something, you gotta commit to it. Whereas Deathloop and even Dishonored, I feel like there's a lot more freedom. Specifically in Deathloop, there's a lot more freedom to like play the way you want and bounce back and forth between, okay, this mission I'm going to use this weapon loadout and these abilities. Whereas like in this next mission, you can change. Prey felt way more grounded and also more difficult. Prey was a way more difficult game than Deathloop and Dishonored as well. So I think a lot of that stuff held it back. But I do think that like initially the thing that really held it back was its technical performance, which now on Xbox Series X is fixed. On PlayStation 5, it's not as much fixed. I'm sure it's better than it was on PS4 and Xbox One, but I played it for like about an hour and a half on PS5, and I was like, ooh, I do not like this frame rate, and I had to switch. And so like I think in a in a great case, they could put out a PS5 remaster or like a next gen remaster for Prey, and that brings in a new appreciation for it, or do like an Arcane remaster collection where they take everything from the last couple gens, bring it forward. But also like they're owned by Xbox now, and Xbox does have FPS boost, and so in a way that's kind of a moot point because you basically have it remastered now. But yeah, like I think Redfall, if it is what Andy's talking about, right, which is, hey, here's one for y'all, right? Like the last few were for us. Here's one that is purely we want to make a game that people play together and have fun with, and that's going to build an audience with Game Pass and all that. I think it could be a hit. I think it could be dope.
I hope so. Yeah, it's just one of those things that, outside of their usual to an extent, right? That I think it'll be interesting to see how it's received and if it, crosses over for everybody. Andy, what is your first pick for Mr. Evil 37's top 5 game development studios for us personally?
From Software
Never
is
heard of
my
them.
number one. I mean, what more needs to be said, y'all? They started inspiring the whole games industry over 10 years ago and have not stopped. And it's just continued and continued. And more studios are taking cues from their game design philosophies. And I think it's really cool that we're starting to see more and more people be open to playing these games because a lot of the DNA has been slowly leaking into all of the games that other people have been playing over the past 7, 8 years, 10 years. Yeah, I mean, I just their catalog, and I'm talking From Software, like starting with Demon Souls. Obviously, like I didn't play Kingsfield. I'm not aware of that era From Software. I'm talking about the Miyazaki run From Software. Demon Souls, playing that on PS5, having that remake, even though that was Blue Point remaking it, you could see that they obviously are kind of experimenting with a lot of weird shit systems-wise and stuff that I legitimately find fascinating and fun. And I know a lot of people don't love some of the systems that happen, like the world state in Demon Souls. It's just things, it's elements like that in game design that push it to another echelon of creativity for me. Bloodborne was my first FromSoft game, and I've said it before, but it was a game that chat convinced me to play, and I was like, I'll do it on my birthday, but I'll probably just play a couple hours, and then here I am, just like mega fan.
I forget, Andy, that was recent. How was that last year?
That was 2 years ago.
Okay.
2 years ago, yeah. It was February of 2020. Was the first time I hopped into Bloodborne and just like, all right, I'll play this for a couple hours, but just for you all like wanted this on my birthday stream and fell in love with it, obviously. And then hopped into Demon Souls with PS5 and then played Dark Souls 1 and immediately saw like just, Greg, it's like if you were in a coma for 20 years, Greg.
Yeah.
Right.
My legs
And then you woke up and you were like, wow, you know what? I like baseball. And I was like, well, let me tell you about the steroid era of baseball. Let me show you some tapes of Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa just hitting dingers 700 feet into just crushing it. And it's like going back to that game, going back to Dark Souls 1 and seeing...
Man, for a second when Barrett went to B-roll, I was hoping he was going to have Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa B-roll.
God, I wish I was that quick.
just seeing the makings of, God damn, they have just been on one since like Dark Souls 1, really. Yeah. And how ahead of the game they are in terms of game design and level design. And again, I think Dark Souls 1 is the best level design I've ever experienced in any game. And it's just a testament to them sort of sticking to their guns. And we hear stories about how Demon Souls didn't sell well on PS3, and a lot of people, I think, Demon Souls is going to be I believe it was going to be a Sony game, and Sony's kind of like played it and was like, nah, this ain't it. Huh?
It was Shu.
Yeah, it was Shu. Yeah.
It was
they're just like,
crap.
This is not it. Like, what are we doing here, y'all? And I think it's just a testament to From Software and Miyazaki and that vision of like, we're sticking to our guns. We know we have something special here. And obviously, I'm very, very late to the fan base, and I'm just really enjoying this journey that they've sort of taken me on. And with Elden Ring coming out now, it's like, God damn, it's almost one of the things where it's like, Greg, you got to retire after you win the Super Bowl. You know, what
Or
else are you gonna do after this? How do
win the Super
you?
Bowl again? What are you talking about? Look at Tom Brady.
John Elway. John Elway did
Yeah,
that, Greg.
yeah,
Remember that?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think that they are just constantly doing the right things and evolving in the right ways when it comes to how to bring a new level of creativity to their sort of style of game. And now Souls likes are just so ubiquitous all over the industry. Yeah, From Software is my number one with a bullet.
Worth pointing out today, as we're recording, Bandai Namco has confirmed that Elden Ring is now shipped over 13.4 million units as of the end of March 2022. Lucy, you're one of the people playing Elden Ring. Do you agree that this is a good top 5 pick?
Yeah, this like if Arcane hadn't have been my number one, I would have said like From, like, despite the fact that I didn't originally have it in my list because it just but like
sometimes it just passes you by. Yeah.
no, I think From Software, I just, for all the reasons Andy mentioned, but also because in terms of sort of the gaming PR media scene, whatever it is we find ourselves in, From don't do what everyone else does. Like, they rarely give interviews. Instead, but when they do, if you get Miyazaki in an interview, he will say something that's just so sweet and profound. Like, the reason behind the messaging system in Dark Souls is just such a beautiful little thing that he turned into. Did you ever hear that story?
No.
It was so he was driving and there was this big snowstorm and people were struggling, and so there was this kind of traffic jam or something going up a mountain or something, and they were each helping each other, but they couldn't get out of the car to say thank you, so it was just kind of people helping each other but expecting nothing in return, really, to help them get out of this situation. And so that's where the inspiration for the messaging came from.
That's awesome. The first Strand game, people say.
Yeah,
they did call it that.
Mm-hmm.
The first Strand game. And so it's, just like the fact that, so much of Dark Souls and Soulsborns are the mystery, right? It's unlocking it by yourself. And they, as a developer, kind of play into that by not, like, they won't do the post-mortem in Edge, talking through everything and confirming theories and whatever. They're not putting Vati out of a job. They kind of just let community. Yeah, thank God. They're just letting the community kind of do all that, and I've never seen a game promote as much positivity, and I'm really glad that it's over the get good, because that's what it was for a long time. But now it just is the positivity and helping people along and grouping together and overcoming these insurmountable challenges, and it's like. It's so special. And also, as a huge fan of dark fantasy, it's just I've started to read Berserk because of FromSoft, and let me tell you, that is an incredible read. The trigger warnings are pretty much everything you can think of if you want to pick up Berserk. I'm not even kidding. Like, everything you can think of is probably in there. But like with Tam and Eyepatch Wolf and playing Elden Ring at the minute, I'm like so immersed in it that, like, even though Berserk is not done by From Software, it has so much of it in FromSoft's games that I'm like, I just need more. I'm playing Elden Ring all the time, but I'm like, I just need more of it. And I don't think any developer makes games as all-consuming as they do.
You talk about positivity, though, and
thank you, Barry. Here we go. Mark Wire stepping up to the plate.
You talk about positivity, but Tam was anything but that in Blessing's first experience of Dark Souls yesterday. Tam was playing defense the whole time.
We'll see if I ever get back to Dark Souls.
Wait, wasn't he doing that to you as well, though?
Oh, yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah, that's part of the journey with Tam. But, yeah, I don't know. I just think that everything that they've done, and just every time there's a new indie showcase of some sort, or just any sort of showcase, it's always, here's a Souls-like. And what does that mean?
Yep.
You drop your currency when you die, or you have these sort of bonfire-like things that reset the world and the enemies, and you have to be more thoughtful with your combat. And it's just sort of, I don't want to say it's making the industry boring, because I think those are my preferred ways of playing combat anyway. But it's just really cool to see how different developers are sort of putting their own spin on that formula.
Yeah, From Software is another one that was on my short list, and I think, the fact that I can tell you that right now I'm looking forward to the next Armored Core game, I think should speak to it all. Like, the fact that, like, I've never been an Armored Core person, but knowing that From Software that is reportedly the next thing, I'm like, Oh damn! All right, give it to me because now I'm in for whatever they're making. Like I've beaten three. I want to say three from software games so far, and like all of them have ended up on my favorite games of all time list between Elden Ring, Sekiro, and Bloodborne. And for me, the thing that makes their game special more so is I would say the combat systems and like how
Mm.
engaging, how good the combat is. Like for Bloodborne especially, I think really pulled me in when I had the first moment of picking up a different weapon and then clicking the button to change the form and then going, oh shit, all right, I'm playing a different game now. Like this is an entirely different way to approach combat for me. You know, that plus the visual system, like breaking down all the systems that are in each of the From Software games to their core, like, or to their different parts is such a fascinating, like, oh wow, they really sat down and really thought about this and really turned this into its own thing. Playing Sekiro was another one where I was like, I can't believe they've done this. I can't believe they've created a combat system unlike anything I've ever seen before, where it does feel, people describe it as playing a rhythm game because it is all about the countering and the parrying and figuring out the rhythm of your enemy. And it really does feel like a rhythm game. And the fact that they're able to pull that off and make it a thing that builds and varies with each enemy and goes crazy by the time you get to the end of the game, I think is just so impressive. That plus their world building and their method of storytelling. Like I don't want to ruin one of my other picks on my list, but like a lot of it I feel like is rooted in what we've seen before from like Shadow Colossus and Eco and games like that are a lot about interpretation and you being thrusted into a world that has had a lot happen and you kind of gaining the narrative as you go. From Software, I think, took that and really ran with it and really made it a thing where not only is it interpretation, but it is, no, there's an actual story here. Like we've thought through every nook and cranny and how we're going to place items and place NPCs and place characters in all these different places to where you are gaining the narrative. You are in this world as an archaeologist, and you are taking everything in and finding the narrative on your own. I think that is such a powerful way to do it, and such a trusting way to do it for the players that are jumping into those games. And I think for that, those games are so satisfying to play because of that reason. Like and I think we talk about it all the time, but like there's a certain amount you have to work for while playing those games, and I think it really does work to their favor because the people that come out on the other side of like actually working for it and like beating the bosses and finding the narrative and really allowing themselves to get lost in the world come out being like, this is one of my favorite experiences ever because there is nothing like it.
For me, my first pick here out of the five, of course, will not be surprising to anybody, and I'm sure it's on a lot of people's list, but I'm going to choose Naughty Dog while they're still on the table. You know, it's funny to come off of everything you guys are saying about From Software and what Blessing was just saying about the journey and getting through it and the bosses and stuff and like have one of those experiences. Like, as you know, like I played through Bloodborne on stream and on my own a little bit and stuff like that. And by the time I rolled credits with it, I was like, I totally get why people love this. This just isn't why I love video games. And Naughty Dog is why I love video games, right? Like, I think you look at The Last of Us, you look at The Last of Us Part 2, you look at the Uncharted series, and that is the kind of experience I want when I sit down on the couch and turn off the lights and pick up the controller. Like, I want that movie meets game. I want that thing where I'm getting something that is emotional and not having to be, that doesn't mean dark, right? We're looking at Last of Us Part 2, which is so dark and so crazy, right? But like something that can be Uncharted, can be that pulp adventure, can be that, you know, Indiana Jones feeling to it. And I think especially, you know, for as long as Naughty Dog's been around, and for the Naughty Dog I'm talking about the start of the PS3 cycle, right? I'm talking about Uncharted, Drake's Fortune on. What gets me so excited?
You want to just count out, you know, the important years of Crash Bandicoot and Jack
for what
and
I'm talking about, yeah.
Right.
For the Naughty Dog I know and the Naughty Dog I love, yes, I do. We will act like
Big
that
fan.
doesn't. No. But what I'm saying is the fact that as we sit here now in May 2022 talking about Naughty Dog and to talk about what we saw in The Last of Us Part 2, what we saw with Uncharted 4, what we saw with Chloe and Nadine's Uncharted, right? Lost Legacy. Naughty Dog's only getting better, and I think they've always been getting better at visuals and storytelling. I really think they're getting better at gameplay, and I think they've really stepped up to that call, right? Because even when I was there with Uncharted 1 through 3, saying how much I love those games, there were so many people, sure, but the shooting feels like ass. I don't like the circular reticle. I don't like just the monster closet of pirates that you would have in Uncharted Drake's Fortune. And these are all criticisms that obviously are valid and I can see their point. Whereas for me, the story and the visuals and the experience, right, the blockbuster moments, you know, outweighed those frustrations if there were those, or the fact that I just don't look to games for that precision headshot and clicking heads like a nitro rifle over there. And so to see Naughty Dog step up to that with their most recent games really makes me fascinated to know what comes next. We talk about it so much on PS I Love You, whether it be, all right, cool, yeah, factions, but what's after factions? And then is it this Last of Us remake that they've taken on or whatever? All of that, I'm like, yeah, sure, that's going to be great. I can't wait for it. I'm so excited for the first time a new trailer drops at Game Awards, and it's the black screen and it's the Naughty Dog logo, and we don't know what's about to happen after that.
Fuck
I
yeah.
don't know what character I'm about to see. It gives me chills thinking about it.
I got goosebumps.
Right? And it's one of those where I think there are so few game developers that you can sit there and close your eyes and visualize that and get the goosebumps. And because we've had it before, right? I remember watching Game Awards and having it go black and having the Naughty Dog logo pop up and be like, is this Uncharted 3 DLC? And I was like, oh, holy shit, that fucking thing with the ants and the fungus, that was them. And it was like, you got that Last of Us trailer. We were off to the races with that. I love that experience from them, and I love that ride with them. And so I can't wait to see what they do next. And it's because of their track record and what they've done since then. Especially, again, Last of Us Part 2, I think, is a masterpiece. And I know a lot of people want to argue one way or the other, but from a gameplay mechanics of how much fun that was to play, and I mean, it's a weird thing to say how much fun it was, or slink up behind people and slit their throats, or run up and hit them with a bat or whatever. But it did. Yeah. It was such great stealth gameplay. Not even serviceable, not even whatever. Right now, to close my eyes and think about the first time Ellie drops in and you have to get down in the tall grass and work your way through that giant thing where the silent people are out there doing their whistles and shit. You're like, what the fuck is going on? Blah, blah. So good. So good. Lucy, you've been nodding along. You agree with me?
I love that game so much. And I completely agree with you. I think there's this suspension of disbelief you have to have with Uncharted 1 through 3 in terms of, yeah, you are this lovable guy who just murders so many people, but also there's the fact that the shooting doesn't feel good. I'm one of those people who just can't stand the shooting in those early games, but then seeing what they were doing with for in particular Lost Legacy, taking this, adding the stealth gameplay, making it better, refining it, giving you more options. And then when it comes to Last of Us Part 2, not only was the writing just beautiful, it was wonderful. I loved that game so much, but it was one of those games where, yes, early days of pandemic, probably not going to touch it for a while, but when I was playing it was one where I was so taken in by it, and I was going along for the ride so much that I would just play it in long stretches and loving everything that they'd done. And I think I'm really glad that they are one of Sony's, premier studios, if not Sony's premier studio, because they're given the money and the time to make pieces of art like The Last of Us Part 2.
I think they're also just kind of the most surface level impressive. I can't really I can't really show a non-gamer what makes From Software games special to me.
Sure.
When it comes to all diving into the lore and finding all the little Easter eggs and pieces of dialogue and reading descriptions and stuff. But in a 5-minute sequence, you can show somebody the most insane cutscene anybody's ever seen in a video game, and how does this look so good, and how are they pulling this power from a PS4, and we're into the gameplay and all of the sort of conditional moments of, well, I'm against this wall, so therefore my character animates this way, but if I'm here, my character does this in the animation. They just think of every little detailed way to make that moment feel unique and not feel canned, like a lot of, they could have gone half-ass and just say, hey, we're gonna have 2 animations for the throat slit or whatever, or 2 animations for the whatever action it is you're doing. But everything they do is so conditional and so I guess dependent on where you are and what you're doing. They're just so impressive writing wise. And I think thinking back to my first experiences with Uncharted, it's why I think Nathan Drake is primarily why I gravitate towards the funny asshole jerk character. Nathan Drake is the reason why I love Guardians of the Galaxy and Chris Pratt in that role, and I love Robert Downey Jr. and Iron Man. I love the sarcasm and the quips, and it sort of further cemented what I love about the Spider-Man characters that I've loved in my past. Of like, I love the dude who's just a cocky asshole and he's funny as hell and he's making me laugh. And even when he's in danger, he's gonna hit you with a stupid one-liner that's gonna make you laugh. Yeah, they kind of showed non-gamers that this is what games are now and this is how we're doing them, and it's not just bleeps and bloops. Like, this shit is really impressive now, and you need to kind of see what we're bringing to the table.
Yeah, and I think like if you whether you love Naughty Dog games or you don't like them as much, I think the thing that I would say is that they're affecting. Like Last of Us Part Two, especially for me, was a game that by the time I finished it, I didn't completely agree with it, but like I couldn't deny that like it had moved me in a lot of ways, right? Like I think of
Mm-hmm.
the scene where it was Joel and Ellie going through the museum and how like
Mm.
how good of a scene that was, right? And how touching it was, right? I even think of like the times where they are going into the violent aspects of Last of Us Part Two and what Ellie's going through and how that affects how she deals with Abby and all that stuff. And like again, like the message there I felt was like, man, this is doing a lot, and I don't like. I to this day I look back and I'm like I still don't know how I feel about that, but I do know that they went for it, and I feel like they go for it a lot more than you see a lot of other big AAA developers of this level go for it. And that's why they're at where they're at, right? I think that's why, like Andy was talking about the influence of From Software. I think Naughty Dog is in a very similar way in terms of narrative and cutscene and like putting together a good ass video game story that has the characters that grow, has the characters that you love, right? I think Naughty Dog did so much of that, starting with Uncharted 1 through 3, and like when Last of Us hits, we talked about on PS Love You that like PlayStation took a turn, after The
Mm-hmm.
Last of Us, where you see so many other PlayStation games take influence from that. God of War 2018 took influence from that, right? Like Ghost, Horizon, like all Days Gone, so many big PlayStation first party games took influence from the success of Naughty Dog and Uncharted and Last of Us because they really set the tone with it. And you only see them grow, right? Like Last of Us Part 2, I think, did so much for cutscene and presentation and lighting and cinematic gameplay and the actual gameplay systems and how satisfying they are, right? Like talking Andy was mentioning how like it feels like they've really accounted for so much in terms of like location, all that stuff in gameplay. And it almost feels like it is like the design is so good it feels like the game is improving. Like it feels like when I'm playing as Nathan Drake and I get into a punch out or a punch fight with somebody and then like Sam intervenes and like punches them across the table, and it's like, this is gameplay, this is not cutscene, like this is happening here. I don't see many other developers doing that because doing that is so hard, and like they put in a lot of work into their games. And so yeah, I'm right there with you.
Blessing, it's time for your number one pick, but I'm already changing what we're doing here. All right, we're gonna be here till 7:30 at night if we do 5, so we're lessening it to 3. So I'm making it even tougher now. All right, we each have 2. You can pick 3, but that's how it's got to be.
Can I do honorable mentions at the end?
Hey, sure. At the
Okay.
end, we can do our quick fire honorable mentions. Sure, don't worry about
Okay.
it.
My
We're
number
having
one
such great discussions about these studios. I don't want it to stop. Be like, well, I just say, EA, and then we move on.
Yeah. My number one's gonna be Nintendo, and these aren't in order, right? We're not ranking these by any means.
You can do whatever you want. I think it's like feel out the question. Do what you want.
Okay. I'm not gonna rank them. I'm just gonna say Nintendo is one of my 3 then. Nintendo, of course, they're a small developer known for games like Mario 3 and Mario 64 and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And they've put out so many of my favorite games. And I think they're a very easy answer, obviously, because they've been around for so long and they put
Sure.
out so many masterpieces and classics. But I think that still stands, right? The fact that they have put out so many masterpieces and classics. And when I go through my Rolodex of games that really impacted me growing up and still to this day, right? Like I start at Mario 64, right? Like I have Mario 3 that isn't just an incredible game and an incredibly designed game, but is a game that means a lot for me and me getting into video games and me playing video games with family, right? And the memories I have with it. And that goes into Mario Kart and the multiplayer stuff as well, right? But I also think of games that I'm playing today still from Nintendo that still to this day blow my mind. Like for me, there might never be a year like 2017 where the Switch comes out and then I played The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and my mind was blown by it. And then later that year I got Mario Odyssey. My mind was blown by it because Mario Odyssey specifically, right, like reached back to the inner child in me who was obsessed with Mario 64 because Mario 64 was one of my first games I ever owned. And like running around, going through the different levels in Mario Odyssey, like going through the story, having the Disney-esque moments in Mario Odyssey, having the New Donk City music number go, and then that like then connecting me back to how much I loved Donkey Kong 64 because the original Donkey Kong was playable in Donkey Kong 64. Like there's so much history and connective tissue between Nintendo games, and there's so much to love in terms of how they think about design and how they think about like like talking about From Software, talking about Naughty Dog, right? Like Nintendo games aren't hard for the most part. Some of them are, but like for the most part, Nintendo games aren't grueling, right? Nintendo games don't have like these crazy ass stories, crazy ass cutscenes. What they do have is such a good idea of what the player wants, and
They're
what
fun.
is they're fun. Like they're purely fun, and they're purely so easy to get lost in. And yeah, like I think I'm gonna forever be a fan of Nintendo and their games because of it. And so
For
yeah, they're easily the first one on my list.
one of the things I've gotten not shit for over the years, but I always feel like I have to justify before I even say it is that I don't ever mean it as an insult, but I think Nintendo's so great at making toys. And that's not to say like build quality or anything like that, but it's what you're driving at that their games are just fun. Like I feel like there's so many different experiences with video games, and I love that. That's why I've stuck around for so long. But like obviously when I sit down to play a Naughty Dog game, I'm expecting something far different than Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey is always going to be this relief, right? It's always going to be this joyous occasion, like you're saying, of what's around that corner. How do I get that the next hat? Where are we going with et cetera? And you look at Kirby, you look at Zelda. Like I'm not saying these games can't be challenging, they can't be that, but it is this idea of like they are making a game with a very specific thing in mind, and it's a very specific core mechanic. It's a very specific, visual style, and or like how Captain Toad's treasure tracker works. But the idea usually at the center of all of them is they just want it to be a fun game that does it, that knows it's a game. It's not trying to be more than a game. I think, so many of the experiences I'll talk about or, go on and on and on about over beers about video games are these, well, it got me wrapped up in this and I cried and I did, etc. Like they just want you to smile and have fun and play a video game. And that's something that is really powerful.
I got
Lucy?
nothing.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
They make good games.
You hate Nintendo.
I wish I had Nintendo growing up. Because
totally.
I love Nintendo games now, but I wish they were as entrenched in childhood as they are for, I imagine, the rest of you. Like, I was PC, I had my was PlayStation. I had a Game Boy Color, but all I had was Pokemon, because my parents were just like, just got Pokemon, she doesn't need anything else. But like, I wish I'd had like a GameCube. I wish I'd had an N64. I wish I'd had those seminal experiences of Nintendo in the 90s, and I'm sad that I didn't. But it doesn't mean that I don't love Nintendo. It's I think it's enjoyment, just like not in a cynical way. I think it is just their games are just pure joy. It's like pure fun distilled down, and Miyamoto and is this bastion of game design and good reason for it, and like their philosophy is that it be fun, and that's why if I'm ever feeling in a slightly more down mood, I know that a Nintendo game will probably be the cheerier option for me. So
yeah, and I think to add on to that, right, and add on to what Greg was talking about, you talk about how like you wish you grew up with a Nintendo, and I was just talking to somebody, I think it was like either yesterday or the day before, about how I wish I grew up with more PC gaming because I missed out on like tycoon games, I missed out on strategy games, I missed out on RTS, I missed out on like a lot of the first person games that I knew I know I would have loved back then, like Unreal Tournament and like the old Thief games or DSX and all that stuff, right? But like in that same conversation I was talking about that, I was like, but at least I had an N64 and like I had friends with the Super Nintendo that I got to go back to, because I think in terms of growing up with games and how games can hit you in different eras, right? Like nothing will hit you in terms of video games, right? I don't think there'll be anything that'll hit as hard as a Mario game or as hard as like a Zelda game or as hard as because like a lot of it comes down to the fun of it and the joy of it. But I think that when you distill it down, like what makes a Nintendo game joyful, what makes a Nintendo game fun, right? It comes back to game design, and it comes back to like art direction and music, right? And like Nintendo knows game design. Like they're good as hell at game design. Like, and it goes all the way back to like the original Mario Bros, where like there's the famous like explanation of, I think it was Miyamoto. I'm gonna assume it was Miyamoto who was talking about how like, yeah, like the reason why you put this Goomba here is because that makes you jump, right? That makes you learn the jump mechanic, and we have these blocks here so you'll jump into the blocks, possibly getting the mushroom, and then like the level design goes from there, right? Like when they talk about Breath of the Wild and how that harkens back to the original Legend of Zelda, the Legend of Zelda, and how we templated it when we were templating Breath of the Wild. We templated it like an original Zelda game, so that we were creating a game where you could go any direction, right? Where yeah, it has that same design ethos and same energy of, hey, it's an adventure, go whatever direction, find what you will, meet the people you will, and have fun, right? Like the way they think about their games are so pure, and I think come back to how do you make a thing fun, let alone their art design, which oftentimes is like bright, colorful, like it catches the eye, and their art design oftentimes ages better than so many other games we see on different platforms because like oftentimes you'll see developers go for fidelity, you'll see developers go for realism, whereas like I'll pick up a Mario game on GameCube today and go, no, this looks good. Like this still looks good, right? I'll pick up Wind
Timeless.
Waker, and like these games look timeless because they just know what they're doing. Like they have, like I think the easy comparison that people make is Disney, right? Where like I'll sit down and watch Finding Nemo, it'll still make me cry to this day. Whereas like Nintendo, they have that same energy of what are we creating and how do we make it timeless, and they do such a good job of it.
Lucy, we come to you for your second pick of 3 now, remember. But
Mhm.
before then, 2 things. Number 1, we're going to check your mic settings. That last segment you were cutting out just a little bit, so we want to check on that. But
Oh.
number 2, I'm going to tell the rest of the audience about patreon.com/kindoffunnygames. Remember, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames to watch the show live, just like Raul is, Cameron Kennedy is, and Paul Morar. Of course, you get the show ad-free. Of course, you get it with the exclusive post show where we play Bless Who. But for right now, it's the ad thing, because of course, we're going to talk about sponsors. So here's Tim before he got bit by the snakes.
Shout out to MeUndies for sponsoring this episode. You know those days when your coffee shop is out of cold brew and your air conditioner breaks and you try to go to the beach but there's 0 parking spots? Yeah, life can be hard. Good thing MeUndies is here to help you take a break from the hardships of the world and give yourself a soft summer. Of course, I don't need to tell you. I got the MeUndies shirt, I got the MeUndies lounge pants, I'm wearing the MeUndies undies, the socks, even my face mask is MeUndies. I absolutely love MeUndies and their soft micromodal fabric, and you're gonna love it too. I absolutely guarantee it. With MeUndies light and breathable micromodal fabric, you can stay comfy and cool all summer long. They have super fun seasonal prints and tons of styles to choose from in sizes extra small all the way up to 4XL. MeUndies has a great offer for all of you. Any first-time purchasers, you can get 15% off. If you sign up for the free to join membership, you can apply that 15% off to their already discounted membership prices. To get 15% off your first order and 100% satisfaction guarantee, go to MeUndies.com/kindafunny. That's MEUNDIES.com/kindafunny. Shout out to Credit Karma for sponsoring this episode. Have you ever been rejected for a credit card? It happens way too often. That's why Credit Karma created Karma Confidence technology, helping members apply with more confidence. Are you earning credit card rewards? Credit Karma can help you compare your rewards options so you can find a card that fits your lifestyle, helping you earn miles or cash back for spending money that you're gonna spend anyways. Of course, I'm a huge fan of that. I love Credit Karma. One of my favorite features is how Credit Karma uses your credit data to show you your chances of approval before you even apply, which helps you apply with more confidence, and then it doesn't affect your credit score. Credit Karma uses your credit profile to show you offers that are tailored to your financial situation. They also partner with a wide range of card issuers so you can be sure that you're exploring all sorts of options. I love Credit Karma. It's so easy to use. Fantastic stuff. Credit Karma, create your own karma. Ready to find the card for you? Head to Credit Karma and check out your personalized mix of offers today. Go to creditkarma.com or the Credit Karma app to find the card for you. That's creditkarma.com.
Welcome back, everybody. So, Lucy, James, what's your second of 3 developers?
Okay, second of 3. I went for Remedy
Mm.
because they are just cool. So yeah, when I was thinking about this question, it was like, what developer whose games do you really like, but also kind of have a really interesting design ethos? I think Remedy. I just think they're just really cool in terms of
Oh, yeah.
the games they make, the people who work there, but also they are so weird. The games are so weird. Like Alan Wake. First of all, the fact that they got a game about a depressed writer released as an action game. Sorry, my cat. Hi, Peanut. Get out the way. Got released. But then it's just like all of the nods to pulp horror that they put throughout their games. The fact that they made their own Remedy verse. The fact that, you know, like Control is this mix of, what would you even call it? Like is it SCP? The weird online stuff, SEP? SCP, I think. It's like
Oh,
all
I know
the
what you
weird
mean.
spooky stories online and stuff, meets X-Files, meets Twin
Hmm.
Peaks. And it's such a weird concept for a game. And like even now, how would you describe Control succinctly. You know, you're a bureau of a weird old house that keeps changing, and also somehow you get powers, and then Hideo Kojima's there. You know, but the fact
And the
that
building is like hidden also is so cool. It's
yeah,
just a cool
and no
concept.
one can find the building.
There's this
and
janitor that's dope as fuck.
and
Yeah.
there's a
Around
bunch of
pencils.
mold, and you're gonna have to clean it. But yeah, it's just they make such strange games, but I'm really glad that they do. And I think as well, and I can't wait to see what happens with Alan Wake 2, because they have this kind of their games have this undercurrent of being unsettling. You know, obviously with Alan Wake 1, it's Mr. Scratch, it's all of the devilish smoke monster-esque stuff. It's people acting weird in Bright Falls. And then in Control, it's, you know, Jesse Faden's there. She doesn't know what's going on. She's deliberately not being told. You, the player, are not being told as why this world is so weird. And so I can't wait to see them go full on feet first into horror in Alan Wake, because they're so good at being unsettling. And I think as well, like their gameplay stuff has gotten better. Sure, there have been pitfalls. I think Control was maybe a little too hard when it came out. Alan Wake, playing it recently, gameplay wise, it does feel a bit funny, and like it definitely has a way it wants you to play. But then again, they're also the people who came up with Max Payne, and I can't wait to see them remaking Max Payne.
Max Payne.
Knowing what they know now, and like those games are already fantastic, and like just imagine it in the Northlight engine and just bringing it up to, or are they making it on Unreal? I forget, but you know, just bringing it up to date with visuals and gameplay, and hopefully making them a bit longer. I think they are masters of tone, and I also think they have really good music selection. Shout out to Poets of the Fall.
Every
Yeah,
so
I-
often, man, I think about replaying Control on PS5 just to get all those visuals and the ray tracing and all that jazz.
Yeah, I was never a massive Alan Wake fan. I remember playing it, and it was one of those spend the night at a friend's house. I played some of the game, he played some of the game, and by the end of it, I was just like, it wasn't really fun gameplay wise, even though they have the history from Max Payne being kind of gameplay focused and introducing cool little not gimmicks, but you know, bullet time, kind of a little gimmick, kind of something that you want to show off to people. And I think Control like made everything just feel so goddamn cool. All of the traversal, flying, floating. I think that was the same year as Jedi Fallen Order. I was like, this is the better Jedi game for me. Like I prefer the powers here of throwing shit and making things float and creating the shield rock and upgrading it to the point where you can explode it after you've gotten so many shots hitting you. It's normally a game I probably wouldn't go for because it is kind of freaky. It's eerie. It's creepy. There's weird ass creatures that are chasing you, and some of them are unbelievably fast and awful to look at. But I think that game just nailed art direction. Like that game, more so than anything, was like really fun to play. Had a really neat gameplay loop with awesome ways to kind of upgrade your character and find out what the hell's happening in this world. Very confusing, but anytime you walk into a room, you get that big font treatment hitting you. It's like, oh, this is like the best part ever. And lighting and like just colors that they use. Yeah, what a fucking game. And I'm excited to see Alan Wake kind of taking some gameplay elements from maybe Control and like making that game a bit more active in its gameplay as opposed to like shining a flashlight and running away sort of stuff, you know?
Yeah, Control really sold me. Like I had played the original Max Payne on PS2 back in the day, and I remember being a little bit into the action, but then overall just not really digging it. Just because like especially for a young me, the grittiness and like the drugs and all that stuff just didn't hit me in that way. Let alone like having other third-person shooters that I ended up getting anyway that like I felt played better back in the day. Picking up Control and for like first of all like feeling how it played, right, getting the levitation stuff, having the what's the weapon called, because it has a cool name. It's like the something,
The director's gun.
Director's, yeah.
no, it's something like that though. Somebody look it up. But like getting that thing and having it change to different forms and having it go from
cool.
like shotgun and all that stuff, cool as hell. Like
Yeah.
service weapon. Like how cool! Like
Also known as the
cool as
director's
hell.
gun. Me and Andy were there.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was going for service weapon, but like having that stuff, but then also having the world building, which was the thing that really sold me. You know, having like finding the notes of like, yeah, man, somebody brought in a pencil to work, and now pencils are banned. Like nobody's allowed to have pencils anymore. You can't bring cell phones in here because the cell phones might attack. Like these aren't accurate, but like these are the energy of like all the different lore tidbits that you'd get. Like one of my favorite parts was getting to a certain area in the game and like seeing a guy in like a cage just staring at a refrigerator.
Oh,
And
yeah.
yeah, and her being like, hey, like, are you good? Like, do you need help? And he's like, somebody was supposed to come replace me. I've been staring at this refrigerator for 24 hours straight. Like, please find my replacement. And then you leave, you come back, and he's gone. And like, there's blood on the floor, and the fridge is still there. And you're like, what happened? And then like that then
Teleporting
launches
to
you
the
into a whole thing.
motel.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
every
yeah,
single time
yeah,
you
yeah.
teleport to the motel. Like that
So
game has
cool.
such specific unique energy that I can't get over. Every time I think about the world building and like the visual style of that game, it always blows me away.
Yeah, so much style, and I think that's one of the things about it. Omega 3 calls that the end of control, going through the blank, and is one of the most OP experiences, especially with the song going so hard. That was the fucking moment that I remember doing all that, stopping, hitting the share button, downloading the clip, and then hitting up Tim. I was like, "You're never gonna play Control, right?" He's like, "No." I'm like, "Watch this! Like, this is so fucking cool."
A top
And somebody else in
gaming
the chat
moment
earlier.
ever. Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Cowhan Fudka said Quantum Break underrated. I enjoyed the hell out of
Oh, yeah.
Quantum Break for all of its like faults and weirdness. But again, you said they make weird games, right? Elusive. I know, maybe I'm putting a word in your mouth, but
That
I
was
think
me.
they make unique games, right? Like I think that's the thing. Like a Remedy game, whether you are gonna love it or be totally put off by it, it's gonna be something so unique. And I love that somebody's out there creating it. I love that they get to keep creating it. Andy, what's your next pick? Your number 2 of 3.
This is pure nostalgia right here. Because nothing in current day has made me believe. But BioWare is my second pick.
Not even legendary edition was like, that's enough for me. That's enough for me to know the magic is still there. They did a good job with legendary edition.
Well, I mean, I think the most faith I have is that Vince Zampella as a whole has showed that EA can take the single player route and be successful with it and not have to shoehorn in multiplayer type things that will, eventually make players not like your game or just kind of be an annoyance, and maybe it's a system or a service that never gets used. But yeah, I mean, like, I think overall, like this list that we're kind of building eventually kind of became the best developers, as opposed to like not only just our favorites, but
I'm
this
coming
is
down to
definitely
favorites next. Don't worry.
this one is definitely like one of just like my favorites, where like the original Mass Effect trilogy is my favorite trilogy of all time, and I love Dragon Age. I never played Dragon Age 2, and I love Dragon Age Inquisition. And I think a lot of people give shit to Dragon Age Inquisition for being like Game of the Year that year, saying it's like super weak. I love Dragon Age Inquisition. I don't give a damn what any of y'all say. It was a fun ass RPG with a lot of the same elements that made me love Mass Effect, which are building relationships and not only having fun with gameplay, but figuring out, who you're going to bang, right? And that's the number one priority that everybody should have. And I think the faith that I have, I mean, seeing all these sort of tweets and press reports from EA and people up top in BioWare talking about how Dragon Age 4 was going to be a multiplayer game. They decided to take away multiplayer elements and go single player only. And I think small hints like that are showing me that they are steering back in the right direction. I didn't love what I played of Mass Effect Andromeda. It just always kind of felt off. And I've never liked the question of like, yeah, but all of the old BioWare people are gone. Like, how can they still have the same spirit there? It's like any good game developer with good heads on their shoulders can make a good game. Like, they know what game they're trying to make. It's not like people working at BioWare now are like, well, we're going to make this a completely different experience. No, they know what they're going for. And if they're talented enough and they have the right people working on the team without a whole lot of interference from higher ups in on the EA side, I know that the people at BioWare are yearning to get back to their golden age of game development. And I'm stoked for whatever Dragon Age 4 is going to be. and I'm stoked to keep on seeing little hints here and there about Mass Effect. And anytime Michael Gamble tweets out, "Had a great meeting today," I'm like, "Yeah, you did, Michael. Yeah, you did, big dog." And I can't wait for whatever Mass Effect 4 is going to be.
Gosh.
Okay.
I
Maybe
agree.
Shepard's not back, or is it back? But you already knows if Shepard's
Who-
back.
I don't
Allegedly,
give a
that was
damn.
just someone at the shop.
Listen,
Didn't
we
know what we were
hire
talking
people. They just
about.
write stuff. They've never played the games.
Yeah,
They just
never
write
played the
things.
games.
Why
But
wouldn't they
spelled
shout
Shepard
that?
right? So
Andy, to answer your call, favorite developers, not best developers. I'm for number 2. I'm picking Ilphonic. Ilphonic, of course, made Friday the 13th. They made Predator Hunting Grounds, and they are making Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed, which, of course, full disclosure, I'm a voice in, but come the fuck on at this point. Like, you think that's what's doing? I mean, the people who made Friday the 13th and Predator are fucking making a Ghostbusters game. You think I want to be on here? And so to disassociate Ghostbusters from it, right? Like, I look at you, Andy Cortez, and I look at you, Blessing Adeoye Jr., and I look at you, Lucy James. And I'll be honest, like, there's plenty of times I feel jealous of all 3 of you and your multiplayer experiences with video games. Because for me, for the longest time, I feel multiplayer is something when multiplayer video games, I'm immediately thinking of N64. I'm immediately thinking everybody in the room playing Smash or playing wrestling or playing Perfect Dark or whatever. Maybe I'm thinking of me and Poe playing whatever, thousands of hours of Madden or NCAA football. And so, Blessing, when you come in and you talk about like, oh man, me and Yami played this thing all weekend long. And then Luce, when we lived together and you'd have your Overwatch dates with the lads and all this stuff. And then of course, Andy playing everything with Snowbike Mike in the middle of the night and yada, yada, yada. I often feel like modern multiplayer, like, it hasn't passed me by, but it's so rare that a game will come in and get me, and I am in this multiplayer groove, and I want to be playing it, and I'm not a shooter guy, and that's so much of what it is, and I'm not a PC person. There's so much of that's what it is. And so as we look at Friday the 13th here, like, for as janky and buggy and all these things that go into the fact that, Friday the 13th, of course, started as an independent game. Then it got the license. It was Gun publishing it. Nobody was ready for the success this game was going to find. Like, I will never forget the nights of playing this with KindaFunny best friends. And I will never forget playing it as a team and doing the awesome Let's Play we did, the awesome Let's Plays we did at the studio. I'll never forget having dinner with Hunter and Alexis Pence and talking about how great this game was, and then getting Hunter on, and like I tweeted out of like, hey, we're playing Friday the 13th right now, and everybody coming in, and Hunter jumping up and down being Jason or running from Jason. Like, there's Friday the 13th is by far not a perfect game, but what it does is encapsulate a horror movie so well in a way that I wasn't even prepared for, and it took like a lot of reflecting on, in terms of, first off, when I got into the game, I went and bought all the Friday the 13th movies on whatever crazy Xbox sale it was. And so after playing however many hours of the game, to then go watch those movies and be like, oh my God, like, I knew they were being true to the movies, but like literally I've seen the cabin they're in right now. I know so well because I played so much of the game. Like, that's how it was. But also the fact of the way the game played. You'd be watching someone else play and you would do the thing of like, oh, why are you running in there? Oh, why are you hiding? Why would you try? Like, you had those same things you yell at a horror movie. And like, the gameplay working like a horror movie, Jason working the way he worked, like, there's plenty of stuff of, I think Jason was like way too OP, like, you know what I mean? But then it was the whole point of just trying to survive or get away. Like, I had so many positive memories of Friday the 13th. And then even Predator, which is not a franchise I'm as into by any stretch of the imagination, but I enjoy, like, those streams were so much fun, Andy. We played so much Predator. And the amount of times trading that off for fucking Nick talking shit and then immediately getting found out, or, something like, it was so much fun.
Not even streams, like the amount that we played that just off stream because we were bored and we just all wanted to have fun and we wanted to progress the gun that we were unlocking or whatever. And you mentioned that Jason was OP in Friday the 13th, and you could be OP in Predator, and you brought up the moment, unless you were Nick, where there's a moment where all 4 of us run through a brush clearing of grass, and we just see Nick as the Predator looking up at the trees, and he's like, oh, fuck. and he sees all 4 of us staring at him, and suddenly we're the Predators, and he's like, fuck, and he runs away as the Predator. And it's just like, there's so many great moments like that I think generally it's easy to kind of dunk on the asymmetric formula because it's a formula that is not necessarily intended to last, right? Like,
sure.
when you're talking 4v4 gameplay or 8v8 or 5v5 or whatever, there's always replayability there. I think asymmetric games can kind of get old faster than what you would normally experience, but those experiences are like some of my favorites in gaming. Yeah, I think Predator was, as buggy as it was, an absolute fucking blast, and not just because we were playing with friends. That definitely, like made the experience better, but I think it was still an absolute blast.
Yeah. And so, I hope beyond fucking hope that Ghostbusters carries that over. If I can, like, because I'm committed. I've already talked to Snowbike Mike. Like, when the game drops, like, that's going to be, I'm taking a week off of all the regular shows just to sit there and play it in costume nonstop and try to platinum it and do all these crazy ass shit with it. But like, I'm hoping that game's fucking awesome. And like, I don't expect anyone here to be as into it as I am, but I hope when we all play together, it's fun. We'll have to wait and see though. So moving on to Blessing, what's your number pick of 2 or 3?
It's tough because I could go by like who's the developer that I think is like one of the best developers. That's also my favorite. Or I can go for like a truly fan favorite one like Greg just did.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might go fan favorite. And with that, I'm going to go Team Eco. Team Eco isn't around anymore. Now they're gen design and they're working on an unannounced project for Epic because they're partnered. But historically, this is more of a nostalgic choice for me in the way that BioWare was for Andy, where I think when I think of my favorite trilogies in video games, I do think that the Eco, Shadow Colossus, The Last Guardian trilogy is very much up there for me. Especially when I talk about Shadow Colossus and Eco specifically, even though I do love Last Guardian and I can talk about it in a second. Like, Shadow Colossus is a video game that I could play yearly and still look forward to it every single time. Like, it is almost like reading like a parable or like going back and like playing something that is like such a simple but such a, I think, like, powerful and engaging story, right? An engaging experience, and going through and hunting down the 16 colossi and taking them out one by one and seeing what's going on with your character. Like, I think I've told the story all the time of like when I was in high school, or no, when I was young. I had my friend Addison who like would let me borrow games all the time, and he let me borrow Metal Gear Solid 3 and Shadow Colossus in the same week. And like that was a mind-blowing week of video games because like Metal Gear Solid 3 showed me like what video game narrative could be, and then Shadow Colossus showed me what like what art in video games can be, right? How video games can be art. And I was young enough to where like I never thought about video games that way because I'd grown up with the N64, and like when I got a PS2, I was playing like Spider-Man games and Spy Hunter and shit. I wasn't playing shit that was like moving. And so like playing MGS3 followed by Shadow Colossus was such an experience. And Shadow Colossus was one where I was thinking about it in the way where, wow, I can't believe how incredible the music is. I can't believe how gorgeous this game looks, right? And even looking back at the PS2 version back in the day, like even that looked mind blowing, even for a PS2 game. Like seeing the scale of the colossi, having like going through the process of figuring out how to climb up these things, right, and like going through the story and seeing what's happening to the main character as like his body starts to get degraded over time, and like you start to put together the pieces of, oh man, things might not be going as they seem in this video game. It was such a special experience for me, and I think in the ways that we talk about video games living on through other video games and inspiring and influencing other video games, so much of that or so much of Shadow Colossus and Eco, I think, do that, right? Like I see Eco in Journey when I play Journey, right? I see Shadow Colossus in like most From Software games, right? I see Shadow Colossus in Breath of the Wild. I see Shadow Colossus in so many of my favorite video games. I think they're an incredibly influential developer, and yeah, like Eco, I mean, it's special for in its own ways as well, right? As an early PS2 game where it is a puzzle game that you are leading along this girl across this castle so you can escape all these shadow creatures, right? Like such a cool, different, unique game. And then you go into Last Guardian, which is one that I think really, I don't want to say underwhelmed, but one that kind of flew under the radar and got a lot of dings for how it ran, because it did have issues in terms of the camera perspective, the camera perspective being problematic, and then also like I think frame rate wise has some issues there as well. But that stuff bums me out so much because I think the pure message and art of The Last Guardian is so good. Like it is such a work of art for me in a video game in terms of what the story was, how they went about gameplay design and puzzle design, and the connection that you really form with this giant bird dog creature, Trico. I thought that game was so powerful, and by the time I finished it, it was one of my favorite games of that year. I think that was 2016. That was one of my favorite games of 2016. And I know that doesn't go for everybody, but I fucking adored the Last Guardian, and so Team Eco is my second pick.
A great pick from a great man.
That's me.
Lucy James, begin the final round of picks. Number 3.
Okay, so again, I like Blessing. I'm kind of torn between this. However, you gotta go with your heart sometimes. So I'm gonna pick Maxis.
Oh,
wow.
Yeah.
Just because thinking back to my relationship with gaming, I don't think I would be as into video games as I am if not for The Sims, and showing that it was, it was a whole different world of video games, and it introduced me to so much. Like, the first video game community I ever found was through The Sims. Like, my first experience with modding a game was through The Sims. But I also think The Sims team has been so progressive since the very beginning, like allowing same-sex relationships way back in The Sims 1. And I'm like, just even thinking about Sims 4 is, the fact that your sim can choose pronouns, decide whether or not your sim can be pregnant or not, regardless of gender. There were missteps, don't get me wrong, like the skin tones, hairstyles were not good enough, but like this kind of feeds into the point where they have such an open relationship with the community that I want to give a shout out to X Mira Mira here. Like, she made the Melanin pack, which was, she made a pack full of skin tones for The Sims, and then the Sims team saw this and were like, we fucked up, we didn't do this good enough, and so we're putting this into the game. And like, they're so LGBTQ positive as a team and like as a community, and I don't think that's really thought about enough. Like, the Sims team really kind of goes above and beyond to try and make an inclusive space for the players. And thinking back, like the Sims player base, it was kind of unheard numbers of the amount of girls that they got into gaming, like back in the late back in 2000, even when The Sims 1 launched, and like what it's done for people figuring out their own gender identity. They can make themselves in The Sims and live their lives in The Sims. But also, it's just like, I'm not gonna say the word missteps, because The Sims 4 launched and it was feature sparse. Like, there were no pools, there were no toddlers, there was shit all going on in that game until. But
where are all the toddlers, man?
Yeah, they completely skipped a life stage. There were no toddlers. You went from baby to child in the blink of an eye, which is how I hear it happens in real life too, Greg.
Yeah.
So,
It's going pretty quick. You've seen Benjamin. He's going bigger every day.
Every time I see him, I'm like,
4'8".
okay, God, taller than me.
Taller than Nick.
But I think as well, like, there is also criticism to be had with regard to just the sheer amount of stuff packs, game packs, expansion packs that are in The Sims. It's at the point now where I think to get the complete set, you're talking hundreds, if not, $1,000 or something to get every single one. But like the fact that they are so open to modding, to community creations as well, and I love it. Every year I have a good month where I just sort of hyperfixate on The Sims, and every time, and it's because I know every time I jump in, there's gonna be either a cool game pack, like last year I was all about cottage living, or like some really good custom content that I can install, or really cool challenges that the community does, and to see the way that Maxis kind of supports that way is very cool. Not a perfect, like, none of these developers are perfect,
of course,
at all. None of these games are perfect, but like, I'm thinking about the last 20 something years of my gaming life. The Sims has had such an important and profound effect on that. And that's just me, and that's, it's had that impact for so many. So,
to toss it, I know the impact of The Sims. I've enjoyed playing The Sims myself many times. It was one of the first reviews I ever did, like, and that was when I was in college, like long before IG or anything like that. But for me, Maxis will always be SimCity, and SimCity, and there's the most recent one that was a complete disaster with its always online bullshit or whatever. But still a game I had a lot of fun with. Still a game I enjoyed playing. It was no SimCity 2000, and that's a game that I put hundreds of hours into on PC. Like, I just played nonstop, did all sorts of stuff with it. But like, SimCity is such an important franchise to me in terms of gaming and all the different ones. I mean, I even enjoyed SimCity DS. I remember always giving Jack DeVries shit at IGN for his review of it, which was totally fair, but I just liked it more than I think whatever he scored it. But I think the quality was still what it was. Like, SimCity for me is such a special game, and that's why for me Maxis is so special, and why I wish they would make another SimCity. I wish they could give them a shot at that. But I digress. Andy, what's your third and final pick?
Oh, man, this one's so tough. Because, like, do I go even further down the fan?
Do what your heart tells you, Andy.
Listen
My
to your
heart-
heart.
Well, my heart beats like a machine.
I knew
Jesus.
it.
Crushed it. I fucking crushed it.
That was great,
Heart
Andy.
Machine. Makers of Hyperlight Drifter. Makers of Solar Ash. Solar Ash comes out and I'm like, man, this isn't what I want. This is like, I just wanted another Hyperlight Drifter. What are y'all doing? And then I played it and I loved it. And I think the team over there just has such a good idea of what feels good and what works in video games. I think Hyperlight Drifter, much like From Software, I think Hyperlight Drifter was sort of that first indie top-down game that influenced a lot of other these isometric action adventure games that we see coming out from a lot of these indie developers, whether it's pixel art or 3D. I feel like they were kind of one of the first ones to make that a possibility for a lot of these indie developers and show that you don't just have to make a side scroller anymore. You can make a top-down Zelda-like with a dope-ass dash mechanic and a shotgun and a pistol or whatever guns you want to use. But while still telling a really important story, and you can still have tone and mood without any dialogue. We can make you feel certain things with just visuals and awesome color palettes, and I think they knocked it out of the park with Hyperlight Drifter. I talk about it all the time. One of my favorite games ever. And then Solar Ash comes out, and it looks to be just not Hyperlight Drifter. I'm like, what? Man, this isn't what I wanted, but you know what? Color scheme, be damned, I'm in, you know? And it's essentially a colorful, perfect color palette version of Pathless.
Yeah.
And the Pathless is this traversal game, and Solar Ash seems to have kind of been coming out around the same time. You could tell the development started around the same time, but they have a lot of the same DNA, and Solar Ash is incredibly fun to play, and when you start to get into a groove and you start to feel that movement, the momentum feels so damn fun, and traversal feels incredible. And I ended up beating the game. I was like, damn, that was a really good game, even though it's a genre of a game that I necessarily didn't even want, and I still enjoyed it. And to see them kind of going back to their roots with Hyperlight Breaker, and knowing that it's going to kind of take a lot of cues from roguelites, and the fact that it seems to be sort of influenced by oh gosh, I can see the logo of this game in my head. Blessing, it's the game that Emmett really loves.
Oh, Risk of Rain 2.
Risk of Rain 2, yeah. Taking a lot of cues from that. It's a roguelite with a lot of roguelite elements, and it's a action 3D game with a dash mechanic and cool ass weapons and great color palettes, and they just get my style. They get exactly what I want, and I just feel like they are kind of always on the right path of making dope shit, even though it isn't what the community wanted. They make a new thing and they go, you know what, that was pretty damn good, actually. Keep doing what you all do. We believe in you all.
Fantastic. A great pick.
Yeah.
Good job, Andy. A great pick from a great man. My final pick for number 3 is another one that is a favorite. And I think, there's plenty of other amazing studios to put out here that I would argue are, the Mount Rushmore of games and yada, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to say Deck 9. Of course, Deck 9 is coming off of my favorite Life is Strange entry, Life is Strange True Colors. Before that, they did Life is Strange Before the Storm. Before that, you might not remember because it feels like Deck 9 came out of nowhere. They were Idle Minds. If anybody remembers Idle Minds, if you're super old like me, they did Pain on PS3, which is a game I covered nonstop for IGN. If you were an old time Podcast Beyond fan, they were the ones working on Ruin, which became Warrior's Lair, which was then canceled and never came out, which was that Diablo Vita game that I was in a demo for during an earthquake and looked fucking awesome. But like, I'm giving you like touchstones of like old fucking IGN Podcast Beyond memories for it that looked awesome, but just never became a thing. And Idle Minds kind of just, went quiet. It was 2017, I think. They said, we're focusing on narrative games and yada, yada, yada. And obviously, that is narrative games, a burgeoning market, right? And I think a lot of that is spurred on by Life is Strange, which of course was created by Don't Nod. That was 2015 when Life is Strange came out. And I remember when Life is Strange Before the Storm got announced, it was going to be by this company, Deck Nine. It was not going to be by Don't Nod. And I remember being like, why would I don't need Chloe's backstory. I don't need a story without powers. Like, what is this actually going to be? And I was blown away by how much I loved Before the Storm. Like, I had such a great time with Before the Storm, finding Rachel Amber's story, finding Chloe, doing like they did so much interesting stuff that, Don't Nod hadn't done in their games yet and played around with it. And I don't think ever did again. Because Deck Nine does such creative stuff, but like, the whole thing, if you haven't played Before the Storm, like there's a section where you have to help out with the school play. And so you get up there and you have to try to memorize your lines. And like you can cheat and like, because it's some Shakespeare one, I forget which one. So you can have the book open, but you can try to do your own thing and blah, blah. It's like such a nifty little weird idea. And then to have them, I really think, step out of Don't Nod's shadow with Life is Strange, True Colors and Alex Chen's story and how great that was. And again, as unexpected as that game is, both in terms of like, her power is empathy. Like, what the fuck? Well, that's going to be stupid as hell. It's awesome. The way they do the cliffhangers for the episodes, the way they, make Haven Springs this amazing town, the way they, give you an open world in an open town square way of going around and exploring and talking to people and finding stories you might have missed and gameplay mechanics you never would have expected. And they just really, I feel like, came in and ate Don't Nod's lunch, which is crazy to say. And especially to look back at Don't Nod, right? Which again, yes, they make Life is Strange. They do this thing. Then they make the Vampire, right? And I was like, that wasn't my jam. But then they do Life is Strange 2. And it was like, okay, Life is Strange 2 was enjoyable, but it didn't have the impact of Life is Strange 1. It didn't have the impact of Before the Storm or what would become with True Colors, right? And then they do Tell Me Why. And then they do Twin Mirror. And it's that thing where suddenly I'm like, okay, I don't know if I'm hyped just sight unseen on every Don't Nod game. Whereas a Deck Nine talks about whatever they're going to do next. I'm like, yeah, I'm in. Let's go. Let's play it.
It's wild how they flipped for me. I think they did that for me as well. Where Twin Mirror, I was so excited about, and then as we got closer to it, I noticed that nobody was talking about it, and I was like, oh no, am I the one that's like that's in the wrong here? Like, am I excited for this? And then like I got the code, and I was like, I'm gonna wait to see reviews, and like, yeah, sure enough, they weren't great. Like, Deck Nine, I think they do everything you were talking about, Greg, in terms of like they up the ante and find the different ways that in which they can not just make a choose your own adventure game, but they can make something that goes beyond that. And I think the neighborhood in Life Strange True Colors isn't only an addition to the Life Strange formula. It is necessary for that game and why that game is good.
Yeah.
It like does so much for, I think, the central message of finding community and like meeting these people and feeling like you belong and allowing you to like walk around and go into the different establishments and then go into like side quests essentially in these different establishments. I think does so much for that. And also like, you talk about the ways in which like they might compare to Don't Nod, right? I think one of the things early on that I found with Deck Nine is that I think their cliffhangers exceed Don't Nod's. Like, I think it was because Before the Storm was like 3 chapters, I want to say.
Ooh, I'm rusty on that one.
It's been long, so I might be wrong on
Wait,
this,
I'm opening and I'm looking, seeing if I get anything.
Chapter 2, I want to say, ended on like the rawest cliffhanger. And I remember from that point being like, oh, I love Before the Storm. Like, this is a fantastic thing. Like, it was
You're right, episode 3, or 3 episodes.
Okay, 3 episodes, yeah. And I want to say episode 2 was the one that like it was they ended on like a dinner table argument. And I remember that moment being like, shit, I really got to finish this because this is incredible. Like, I think they've taken the reins of Life Strange in such an impressive way, and I am very much looking forward to whatever Tech Nine does next, whether it is another Life Strange game or their own different adventure game. Like, well, remember, I'm excited for it.
They're teamed up with Telltale. They're doing the Expanse, the Telltale series.
Yeah, boy.
Oh, is that them?
Yeah. So it's one of those, I don't know shit about the Expanse, but I'll play that game.
Please
Lucy,
watch
would
The
I like The
Expanse.
Expanse? You know me. You know me.
Uh,
Yeah, see, there you go.
no, I don't know if you would. Like season 1 is a bit touch and go. Like I almost bounced off it, but then when I got to season 2 onwards, I was like, oh shit, this is Mass Effect meets Battlestar. So this is, a Venn diagram of things that I would like, but season
Yeah.
1 I would say is slow going. I would
Okay.
love it if you watch The Expanse.
Well, I'll just play the game
It's a
and then we can talk
personal
about that.
favorite.
How about that? It's kind of like how I played Doctor Who and Lego Dimensions, and now I'm a Doctor Who expert.
Fuck you, Greg.
I almost bounced off of season
Exterminate!
1.
I remember these guys.
I almost bounced off of season 1 as well, Luce. And I never, I think because of season 1, I never started season 2 really in a serious way. Like I kind of started the episode
Thomas
here
Jane
and there.
in his fucking hat.
Stupid ass hat. But talk about a character, talk about a superpower that Greg is like perfect for Greg empathy. Like that's just like, it's the Greg ass thing of all time. My superpower is empathy. God damn, you fucking nerd, dude.
He's a fucking
This fucking gamer.
Sound
All
like
right,
you play
fuck you, Andy.
Slime
Blessing,
Rancher,
what's
you
your
know?
final pick? What's your final pick, Blessing?
Final pick is so tough because like as I look through, there are so many developers left who I consider my favorite developers, and for me, the more I sat with this as like you guys were going through your picks, the more I was like, no, I think there's only one that I can go with, and that one is Rockstar. Rockstar is special not only for like what you hear me talk about all the time with GTA Online and how much I love GTA 5 and how much I always go back to online to play racing, get in the highest, yada yada, do all the different things, just exist in that world. But for me, it does go back to the nostalgia factor too of the PS2 era and how dominant Rockstar was and how much they meant to me during that era. Like I opened up in a different tab rockstar.com rockstar.com/games, just go through like, oh yeah, okay, let me jog my memory of all the different Rockstar games that they put out. And like they were on a run from PS2 to PS3 era. And like so much so that it's kind of a bummer to see that they've put out like 2 games in the last decade. But when I go through, right, like it is the Max Payne series, which I forget if they just co-developed or published, because I know Remedy did that as well. But like Max Payne series, there's like Midnight Club, there's obviously the GTA games, which means so much to me, especially going back to the story of again the same friend Addison who let me borrow Shadow Colossus and Metal Gear Solid 3. I would go over to his house all the time to play video games, even before that. And I remember going to his house and him having GTA 3 and sitting and him like going through like the story and whatever and like blowing shit up and me being like, oh whatever man, it seems like a video game, and then getting into Vice City and him doing the same thing in Vice City, and I'm like, why do you keep showing me these video games? And then he got San Andreas and did the same thing, and I was like, I don't know man, like these games seem all right. And then he let me borrow San Andreas and I took it home and I played it, and that's when I realized that this shit is magical. I could not believe the game I was playing. Like the fact that San Andreas especially spanning 3 different cities, right? The real world counterparts being Los Angeles, Vegas, and San Francisco. It having like a desert, it having country, it having mountains you can climb, it having like a hangar that you can own, it having all these different establishments you can go in, right? Like that game felt so expansive. And even going back to it with the GTA trilogy that released last fall, even though now that map doesn't feel as big, it still feels big, right? It still feels like it still feels so impressive, especially when you look at the diversity of land and what they did with it. Like one of the complaints or like nitpicks that you can make with the GTA trilogy specifically is that like they get rid of a lot of the fog. And so like if you fly far out enough from San Andreas, you can see the whole island of San Andreas, which you weren't able to do in the PS2 versions. And doing that with GTA trilogy, it's like, this place is small, but it looks like such a playground. It reminds me of like seeing a Mario 64 level zoomed out, and it's like, wow, they designed the hell out of this. GTA San Andreas, I think, has the same thing in its map, where you look at it zoomed out, and it's like, god damn, they really did this. Like, they really figured out how to make this whole state available in this game for you to run around it. And like that was such a moment for me experiencing GTA San Andreas, and then that fed into like experiencing other Rockstar games. The Warriors was another one that meant so much to me on the PS2 that I could not get enough of it. Like that was my first experience with the Warriors, because I hadn't watched the movie, and like getting into the game and getting into the gameplay. Once I realized it was a movie, I was like, oh snap, I gotta watch the movie. And like I did. Now I'm a fan of the Warriors because of this Rockstar video game. But like that was such a special thing, right? GTA 4, Bully, like the list goes on in terms of like the list goes on in terms of how many fantastic, memorable, iconic games they made. And to this day, right? Like they're still putting out great stuff, right? They've had some bumps on the road being GTA trilogy, but like their last thing was Red Dead Redemption 2. And even though I didn't gravitate to that as much, I was bored by it. And I know like that one is one that is a bit divisive. The people that love Red Dead Redemption 2 fucking love Red Dead Redemption 2, and I think there's a lot of merit there in terms of what they do with it technically and what they do with it in terms of really submerging you into the cowboy experience.
Red Dead Redemption 2, a game I did not vibe with or enjoy, but I sit here and I can tell I say it's a masterpiece. Like it's kind of goes back to our Remedy conversation, where I'm glad that people are making unique games and Rockstar's making something that they know, even though it will sell a gajillion copies, won't appeal to everyone, right? Like, but to sit there and watch the snow physics and God, the testicles on the horse, you know what I mean, and everything else, like you can really sit there. Yeah, you can really understand what they were going for. But I'm not even joking though; it is a masterpiece, obviously. Even though
they also made Oni, and so yeah, Rockstar is my final pick. Can never forget Oni.
Wait, did they make Oni?
They published it.
I was gonna say Bungie made Oni, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, for each one of us, the lists look like this. Lucy picks Arcane, Remedy, and Maxis. Andy picks From Software, BioWare, Heart Machine. I pick Naughty Dog, Ilphonic, Deck 9. Blessing picks Nintendo, Team Ico, and Rockstar. We have a post show to do. We're going to do Bless Who, but everyone gets one honorable mention. And you get like 280 characters to say why you picked it. We're not going to do the whole thing, all right? So, Andy, we're coming back to you now to pick your honorable mention.
Insomniac.
Why?
They just don't stop, man. They just keep putting out banger after banger, and it's going to continue and continue.
Just keep going.
Fair enough. For me, then, my honorable mention would be Drinkbox. Even though Nobody Saves the World didn't work for me, I still love that catalog of Guacamelee, Tales from Space, of course, Severed, and they're another studio where as soon as they say they're doing something, I'm excited for it and I want to know more about it. Lucy, I skipped you. Sorry. What was yours?
That's fine. I'm saying id Software.
Oh, okay.
That's real good.
Wolfenstein, like Jesus Christ.
Hell yeah.
Those games do not have those games don't have the right to be as good as they are. Like Wolfenstein 2, unbelievable.
Are you talking about the OG Wolfenstein or the latest one?
The latest one.
I think that's Machine?
Oh, Machine Games. Sorry.
Yeah.
Shit. No, yes. You are right. I mean Machine Games, not id Software. Why did I say id? Oh, because it's made on id.
Doom.
It's made on
It's
id
made on
Software's
id Tech.
engine.
Yeah.
id Tech. Yeah. I mean Machine Games. That's why. That's embarrassing.
It's not embarrassing. You're fine. Everybody
Yeah, but I'm
understands.
I'm the woman on the internet, Greg.
But you're a woman on a kind of funny show this deep.
Yeah.
I can't believe
Kind
you
of
didn't
funny
know
kids
the
are
difference
great.
between Machine
Best
Games
friends
and
with
software. Are you a games journalist? Is that what they do at GameSpot?
Yeah.
Jesus, Blessing. I didn't expect you to turn on them. You know?
Damn, he's the only one.
I
here.
learned from
Goddamn.
you, Greg. I learned from you.
Blessing, I would never be. Blessing, what's your honorable mention?
I'm going to forego my explanation to name two honorable mentions. Rare and Kojima Productions. I'll say no more.
Okay, you don't need to. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Kind of Funny Gamescast. Each and every week, we gather together to talk about the things we love and sometimes don't love about video games. If you love that, you can go to patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, where, of course, you can catch the post show we're about to do with another thrilling game of Bless Who. If getting stuff for free is more your jam, don't worry. YouTube.com/kindoffunnygames. Podcast services around the globe. Each and every week, a brand spanking new episode, sometimes more, oftentimes reviews. Great times every time. Isn't that right, Natural Rifle?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we got a post show to do. Remember to subscribe to youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. Of course, follow Lucy James Games all over the place. You're streaming a lot. When do you stream, Luce?
I'll be streaming again on Tuesday, Thursdays. I'm still continuing with Resident Evil 4. And then I'm in such an Elden Ring place in my life that I might go back to the very beginning and do all those. So stay tuned.
Take back everything I said.
Oh.
Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, it's been our pleasure to serve you.